Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live presentation titled OPC Trend, Master OPC Data Analysis. My name is Randy, and I am the presenter today. We already verified most of you can receive the audio portion of this webinar well. So if you have a problem with the audio, please let me know immediately. We will also provide a copy of this webinar at the end of the presentation. If you can't hear me well, please click telephone and you will get a local telephone number you can call. Today's presentation will take about 45 minutes, including questions and answers. So if you have a comment to make or a question to ask, please use this chat interface you see over here at the bottom right. The organizers will pass me your questions and I will include them in the webinar as we move along. And if I don't get your question during the slide presentation itself, I will answer it at the end. I will also send an email responding to each individual question. Let's get going. Once again, this webinar is titled OPC Trend, Mastering OPC Data Analysis. What we're going to look at here is the problem itself, the solution. I'll explain the solution, and we will talk about trending in OPC. I'll show you about acquiring data, collecting this data in a historian, viewing real-time and historical data. I'll show you how to do that. And at the very end, I'll show you how to get a copy of this webinar recording. Again, we're going to email it to you, and where to get the software from if you want to give it a try. So as you know, we are surrounded by OPC servers. We've got OPC classic servers, OPC DA based on DCOM, and OPC UA servers for control systems. Here's just an example of a control system. So a PLC or a DCS or SCADA systems, they typically have OPC servers, but we also have OPC servers for databases, real-time databases like Microsoft SQL, but we also have OPC servers for Pi or Info Plus 21 or Industrial SQL. So we've got OPC servers both for real-time data and for historical data. And the question is, how exactly do we get the data? How do we acquire it? And also, how do we trend it? And obviously, trending is a very, very common requirement. So what is it that we require from data analysis? Well, of course, again, we want to acquire real-time and historical data. We want to be able to view and trend that information, view it in terms of tabular data. So maybe you want to view it just in a table, just to see what the actual values are. Maybe you want to send them to Excel. And of course, maybe you want to trend them and see them visually. And of course, you want to connect to all the OPC servers, no matter what vendor they are, no matter what technology they're using, whether it's OPC DA or OPC UA mix, HA, doesn't make any difference. And what people are looking for is the ability to zoom, to scroll, have a cursor, and so on. And of course, we want to run all this stuff without any kind of installation or Windows registry changes. So you want to be able to actually view your data without doing any of this stuff. And again, support for OPC Classic, OPC DCOM, OPC DA, and OPC UA, and of course for tunneling. So here's what we're going to do. We've got a control system that will have an OPC server. We're going to take that information, the real-time data, and we're going to bring it into OPC Expert right over here. Of course, we can also go to a historical data source. So in this case, suppose this guy has history data. So maybe you have an HDA server or an HA server, a UAHA server. Bring that into OPC Expert. What we want to be able to do is take that data, and once we capture it, we want to put it into a historian. Now, from there, what we want to do is, of course, trend it. So trending is number one. Maybe we want to send it to Excel. And we have a separate webinar on Excel. I don't want to spoil it too much. We've got a separate webinar right on Excel, and we'll do that later on. And we will also have a separate webinar on Microsoft SQL, how to store data and put data in SQL Server. And if any of you are actually interested in that, just let me know and I'll send you some references to that. In any case, we want to be able to do all of this, and you can once you get your data and you archive it. So now you can trend real-time and historical data. You Excel, you can get access to real-time and historical data. And even when you send data outside, whether it's Microsoft SQL or Azure or anything on the web, you can do that. And especially since you've got data stored historically, you can actually send the data. If this connection is ever broken, if this connection here is ever broken, OPC Expert will store the data and then forward it along, so there is no data loss. In any case, this is the architecture I will show you, and we will connect to these OPC servers just like this, and then we're going to archive that data in long-term storage. Then I'm going to show you how the trending works. So this is what we're going to see. Now, the key features is for trending, we want to be able again to view real-time and historical data. And the support for trending is on any operating system that supports JavaScript. So, for example, you can do it on your phones, on your Androids or your iPhones or your tablets, whatever they are. Or you can do this on Unix. You can do this on Windows. So you can really do this everywhere. And I'll show you how that's done and how you can do it yourself too. The data capture itself, that's where this happens right here. That's on Windows XP all the way to Windows 11. If you're using that kind of Windows, meaning workstation, or if you're using Windows Server from Windows 2003 all the way to Windows 2025. So from very early to the most recent. And of course, there's support for OPC UA and OPC Classic, OPC DA. For communication support, all the security profiles, so from no security to AS to basic 256 and on and on and on. So whatever that security profile is, it's all supported within OPC Expert. You can connect, of course, to local and remote OPC servers over DCOM, TCP/IP, HTTP, HTTPS. So all the communication mechanisms are actually supported by this. You can get accurate diagnosis of any kind of connection problems, and it will give you very verbose explanations. They're very detailed. They tell you if you find something wrong, they tell you what's wrong, and they also tell you why. And of course, you can connect with third-party applications. So, for example, OPC Expert enables you to grab this data and then send it out to third-party applications without any problems using the API, which I'll show you in just a little bit. Now, remember, for trending, you can actually also trend it in Excel. I won't go into this too much, but I'm just going to point it out because with OPC Expert, you can also send your data to Excel. So you can do your data analysis in Excel. Then you can do your trending right within Excel. So you can do nice fancy trends all directly from Excel with Excel 2003 to Office 365. OPC enables this dynamic data view, meaning you can see real-time data. You can actually see and trend real-time data right within Excel and do your data analysis in Excel. OPC Expert provides what's known as an RTD, real-time data. This is different than DDE. DDE is polling, whereas the RTD enables report by exception, which means that if you're getting a lot of data, it's far, far, far easier on your CPU and far more efficient. Again, when we're talking about real-time data, if that's what you're trying to do in Excel. So it really enables Excel to trend process data natively. It's very, very cool, actually. So here's the architecture for OPC Expert. And by the way, just to go back to the slide a moment, we have a separate webinar. We're going to have a separate webinar on this. So, but if anybody's interested in that, just let me know. Okay, so let's take a look at what's happening within OPC Expert. So what I'm going to show you here is all within OPC Expert. So when you get the application, all of this is inside OPC Expert. It begins with data acquisition using OPC DA and OPC UA. So you get an OPC DA client and an OPC UA client. This information inside OPC Expert goes into OPC Expert's intelligent engine. And from there, you can send the data out via Excel's RTD server, real-time data. So data comes in here, comes out there into Excel. So OPC Expert, for example, collects the data and sends the data with real-time data with the RTD to Excel. You can also send it to a REST API server that I will actually show you in just a little bit. So again, you can get real-time data from here and you can get historical data. Pretty cool stuff. OPC Expert can also take this data and store it into a database. I pointed out just a little bit earlier about this database, but we're going to see this. So you can take data, send it to a database, get that data back, meaning you can store it and then you can retrieve the data. So you can provide, for example, REST API with historical data, not just real time, but historical data too. Now, this goes much further because you can also bring in event data, so alarms and events, OPC alarms and conditions. There's a DA server on here. So, for example, you can take OPC UA in and OPC DA out. So it's a converter. You can have an OPC UA server, so you can bring in OPC DA and bring out OPC UA. Again, convert DA to UA, no problem at all. There's MQTT in here. So there's an MQTT broker, a publisher, a subscriber, all included in here. So this interacts very, very nicely with your MQTT infrastructure. And of course, there's a client API as well in OPC Expert. You can build your own applications on top of OPC Expert. Okay, so again, all of this is built into OPC Expert. So when you download OPC Expert and when you run it, you actually get all of this inside it. So in this specific webinar, what we're focusing on is just this DA client, UA client, REST API, and I'm just mentioning this a little bit, but the rest of the stuff we don't worry about so much. Again, this is what's available, and of course there's more, but this is what we're actually focusing on in this particular webinar. So let's get to a little demonstration. Here's what I'm going to show you. Once again, we have data coming in from a controller, so from a DCS or PLC or maybe a SCADA system, maybe some analyzers that you have, and the data is coming in directly to OPC. This is coming in via OPC UA, DA, or just OPC DA, so OPC UA or OPC Classic. So I'll show you that. We can also, of course, connect to historians via OPC Classic, OPC HDA, or OPC UA HA. So this guy allows you to connect to data any which way you want. Now, if you're getting real-time data, it stores that data in a historian right there. So it's got its own history. Now, once it's in history, as I said before, you can start to send out trends and send it to Excel or send it to Microsoft SQL or some other repository. Maybe it's on the internet, maybe it's some other database, NoSQL, Mongo, Azure, whatever it is you want. So this is what we're going to see. So the first step is going to be to connect to these OPC servers. Second step, once we connect and acquire the data, we're going to archive this data. And then we're going to trend this real-time and historical data. So we'll collect the data, we'll acquire, we'll collect it, then we will archive it in permanent storage, and then we're going to trend it. So let's get going here. So I have here a computer. There we go. And there's OPC Expert. Just before I begin, I want to show you what's included in OPC Expert. When you download OPC Expert, you just get a single executable. That's all there is to it. And if we double click it, what you can see is that OPC Expert actually extracts everything on its own. So this is all completely automated. It extracts everything. So once you're done with OPC Expert, you can, of course, delete everything. There's no installation in here whatsoever, and it doesn't change Windows registry settings. Okay, so that's enough for Windows Explorer. Let's get in here. I will show you what's going on. So in this case, let's expand this computer. So I'm expanding this computer, and immediately I find a whole bunch of OPC servers. I see two UA servers. They're the first ones to pop up. So we see two UA servers, and we see OPC Classic servers. In this case, this is an alarm and event server. We find a DA server over here. This guy is OPC DA. This one is OPC A&E. So you can see the different OPC servers. They're all on here. But in this case, just to make the view a little bit easier, I'm going to go to the server types, and let's remove these just to make the viewing a little bit easier. And here we go. We'll just minimize this list a little bit. Okay, so now I will connect first to this Iconics OPC server. We'll go to a numeric branch. I'll drag and drop all these items here. I'm subscribing to the data. And as you can see, we can immediately see the value. So we're getting this real-time data. We can see all these different data types and so on. You can take a look at this once you download. Okay, so once I'm here, let me get back. I will also connect to a UA server. Really easy to connect to UA servers, just like this. And you can see we found some more data over here. So I will drag this and I will drop it on my real-time view. And here we subscribe to everything. So there we go. I'll just minimize this. And again, I'm just doing this to make it a little bit more clear for you. So now you can see we're connected to this Iconics and also to this Kepware UA server. Here, I will right click the taskbar. I want to show you Task Manager. You can see that there are two processes running for OPC Expert. So one is OPC Expert.exe, that's this. There's also the system tray. I'm just going to exit this system tray. It does give you a whole bunch. I'm going to exit this just so that it's easier for you to see what's going on. So I'll exit, and this guy is going to go away. So there we go. Okay, so there is OPC Expert. Very, very simple. We just have this very, just one application. Now, if I want to trend data, and keep in mind, I'm only getting real-time data here. There's only real-time data. What I don't see is any kind of history. So I'll move this down a little bit. So there's OPC Expert. So I want to select everything. So I'll go to here, go Control A to select everything, and right click, archive, and create new archive. Here we go. Now, when we're creating the archive, we can send this data, as I said before, to Microsoft SQL, Mongo, to REST, to SQLite, to, well, whatever it is you want. Azure, there are a whole bunch of other options available as well. And if you're interested in any kind of other databases, just let me know, and we'll let you know what's supported and what's the latest. In any case, we'll put it into a simple CSV, and I will go next. And there are a bunch of options here that you can take a look at, but let's not worry about this now. Now, what I've done is I'm creating, right now, I am creating the historian. So it's actually archiving data right now from both DA and UA servers. The green check mark tells me everything is okay. Now, you also notice that there's still only one executable here. So OPC Expert will happily run, and the archive will run inside it. The only problem is if you stop OPC Expert, it stops archiving. So we need to run it as a service if we want to stop OPC Expert. So to do that, we go to Tools, Install as a Windows service. So watch this. I'll install it as a Windows service. I can run as a system account or anything else, nice and easy. I'll click OK. Now watch over here. So there is OPC Expert Archive Server. It was extracted from OPC Expert and is now running as a service. There we go. And you can see it's now collecting data. I'll make this a little bit bigger. So we can see all the data that is being stored. Okay, so here we go. And you can see all these different items that are being stored. Now, once again, what you can see is the archive. So we've done steps 1 and 2. In other words, let me just get this over here. So we connected to the OPC servers and we're archiving data in this long-term storage. Well, now I want to be able to trend this real-time data right over here. So let's go do that. So what I will do is select some items. So I'll select 2 of them from OPC Classic and another 2 from OPC UA just to show that we can mix them. We will right click. In fact, let me get in here. Now remember, this is only real time. This is a direct server connection. So these guys are only real time. So here we'll right click and go to trend. So I'm going to trend just like this. And now what OPC Expert is setting up is the REST API server. Now the REST API server is actually quite important. It automatically runs as a service. It doesn't have to if you don't want to, but in this case, we're running as a service. And there is OPC Expert REST API. You can see that there's a REST API server. Yep. There we go. And there's even a UA server that's extracted automatically. And you can see that it's initializing the data. And here we go. Now it took a little bit to do it the first time, and only because we had to set OPC Expert had to set up its REST API server and the OPC Expert UA server. So there we go. So here we're getting the real-time data, and you can see the real-time data is coming in. Now, what we didn't get is any history yet, but that's because I'm connecting directly to the OPC server. So the OPC servers themselves don't have any historical data, which is why you don't see any history. We'll play around with this in just a little bit. You can see the real-time values coming in here, and the cursor value, that's right here. So you can see my cursor right over here, and this value over here corresponds to whatever the cursor value is. Okay, so once again, you didn't see any history data. And just to point it out, again, if I trend, so I'm starting the trend again, and you can see that we don't have a record of the previous data. It just starts from scratch all over again. So there it goes. Right, so there is my data. And we don't have access to history because I'm connecting directly to the OPC servers. And that, again, is in the real-time view. But if I go to the archive, so here we go to the archive. I'll select these items right here, and we'll trend. Remember, I had them selected before. It doesn't really matter when I selected them. So this time, this is from history. And you can see that there's a little database icon there. And now I'll trend it. So now it's going to look a little bit different. And sure enough, here's what you see. Now, all of a sudden, we see all the historical data. Now, remember this right here. You can see that we lost data here. Why? And the reason is, remember when we started to archive data, and then I made it run as a service. Well, you make it run as a service, it has to stop, set itself up, and then restart. So that's why we missed data. And there is the archive server right over here. Now, what I want to point out is that this is running as a service. And because it's running as a service, and notice this here, this is only a GUI. There's the real-time data, but this is really only a graphical user interface. If I close this, what I'm closing is OPC Expert.exe. But you notice that the archive server did not stop. The archive server keeps on going. And by the way, it's no coincidence if you take a look at the CPU usage, you can see it's really very, very low CPU usage. Very, very low. It's, well, 0 here. So it's between 0 and 1%. So it's very low. When I start up OPC Expert, you can see there's OPC Expert again. So it's starting up. You can see the CPU is used a little bit more, right? It's setting up right now. It's connecting to the historian. It realizes, hey, I have some data, and here we go. So you can see that it's actually collecting data. It's showing you what is collecting, but we never did stop getting data. So if, for example, I go here, I'll take a slightly different point. Let me go in here and this guy. So just slightly, in fact, let me take this data instead of sign, right click, and we're going to trend. And if all goes well, we will see that we didn't actually miss data when OPC Expert was closed. And sure enough, remember, this is what happened when we restarted OPC Expert, and there is that there is the data. Now, so we see the trend, and you can see the historical values. We can zoom in. So of course we can zoom in. So we can go like this, or we can click the plus, for example, to zoom in. Or I can say, for example, right in here for the minutes. Now the minutes is for the display itself. So maybe what I want to do is make this only 1 minute. So I'll click 1 minute and say, let's make it 0 seconds. So here we see 1 minute of data, and we can see the real-time data coming in. And of course, I can start to scroll right here and see the previous data. Remember, this is the data we missed. Now, you notice we're not seeing any updates. Of course, we're not seeing any updates because those updates are happening over here, and we're looking right over here. So if I go back to view the real-time data, here we go. Now we see the real-time data coming in. I can view, for example, instead of maybe I want to see 15 minutes worth of data. Now, keep in mind, I didn't actually store 15 minutes worth of data, but here we go. Now we can see 15 minutes worth of data. You can do this for hours or days. It's actually quite flexible. Now, with these trends, and it will be a little bit easier if I go back to 1 minute. So I'll go back to 1 minute. Here we go. We'll go somewhere in the middle. And now what I want to do is put one trend on top of another. So I'll take, for example, this trend right here and put it together with this trend. So we can see these two trends right here. So what I can do is click this burger icon right here and merge with below. And as you can see, we've now merged them. And you can see the different scales. Now, in this case, the scales are the same, but I can put them together with this, which is 20,000 to 40,000. So I can say, for example, here, merge with below. And now we see the three scales all together. Of course, it kind of looks like a mess, but that's only because of the data that we're actually looking at. So you can see the data coming in. I can also say, no, you know what? I want to look at 5 minutes worth of data. Enter. And when I do that, here's the data that we see. And I can, of course, move this all around. Now, the real-time values, those are the latest values that would be coming up on the right-hand side. Those are the latest values. Those keep coming in. But the cursor value, so this right here, you can see these cursor values don't change. I can then go and see my real-time data again. So pretty cool here. Now, what's interesting and what is not immediately obvious is that this trend actually uses JavaScript. Now, why is that important? Because, and I'm just going to give this a little bit more room. So here we go. So as you can see, we have more room. Now, why is this important? Because we can take this trend, for example. So again, I'll just take these two. I can right click, check this out. I can trend, and I can now use it, for example, in Chrome. So I can display it in Google Chrome. The previous display, so this display we had earlier is from OPC Expert, but this display here is actually from Chrome. So this is actually from Chrome, and all of this is available exactly the same as you had from OPC Expert. Now, why is this important? Well, again, you're seeing it on a browser. Let me go back to OPC Expert, right click, trend, and now we'll show it in Edge. Both of those, of course, can run JavaScript, and that's why you can view the trend. Now, there's a point to all this. So again, there's our data, and remember, we're collecting more data here. So, for example, I can look at 20 minutes worth of data, and you notice that these guys are completely independent. So we have one trend. This one is coming in from Edge. We have another trend over here coming in from Chrome. And this guy here comes with OPC Expert. Now, why is this important? So let me just close these guys. So what's going on here, and the reason this is so important is this. I can go options and I can go QR code. When I do this, so you can actually pull out your phone and you can trend the data. So if you try to trend this, and I'm talking about this particular QR code, it won't work for you. Why? Because it's trying to connect to my computer. Your phone will be connected to my computer. But if you repeat this, what I just did on your system, your phone will connect to your system. Your phone will connect to your system and will actually show it will show you this trend on your phone, and you will have these controls right here. You will have all of this. You can do everything I'm doing here on your phone or on your tablets. You can start walking around in the plant, and actually right on your phone you can you can see the data. Okay. Hopefully, this is explaining what's going on. And again, remember, all of this data, all this data that we see here is coming in, and I will just stop this so that, and I already showed you that we don't lose data at all if I close OPC Expert and I open it up. But this time, I'm going to kill the archive, And because I'm killing the archive, as you can see, I just killed the archive. And because I killed the archive, now it restarts because it's a service. So Windows automatically restarts it. You can see it setting up. So it's taking a few seconds to get set up. And then it's connecting to the servers. Everything is quiet again. When I start OPC Expert, it's going to connect to the archive. And if I trend some data, this time again, we'll see a second loss of data. The first time was when we made it run as a service, so it had to stop and restart. And the second time was when I just killed it now. So again, the reason I am selecting two items is just to show you some are coming in from UA, some are coming in from DA. OPC Expert really doesn't care. So for example, I show this in here. Now we're going to see data loss. See that? So there's our data loss. If I show 20 minutes worth of data, oh, would be helpful if I actually do it properly. Enter. So I can see that data loss right over here. In this case, it only asks for 10 minutes worth of data, but I can request more data. So for example, from beginning of time, from the earliest found until now, send query. And now I will get all of my data. You see, there's all of my data right here. There's the initial data loss right here when we made it run as a service, and then when I killed it again. So hopefully this gives you a taste. And what's really cool is if you try this out on your own system, give this a try on your own system and use that QR code. You'll be able to see all of this information on your on your phone. Okay, so hopefully this gives you a taste of what's going on here. Let me just make a few more statements for the people that pay the bills, the training portion, and then I will tell you about getting a copy of this webinar recording, and I'll go back to the questions you asked that I didn't answer during the webinar itself. So let's get going here. So if you want to get automated troubleshooting help from when you're connecting with OPC, whether it's OPC Classic or OPC UA or OPC, so first of all, OPC Rescue is for OPC Classic, but if you want OPC UA and OPC DA, that would be OPC Expert. You can download this one for absolutely free and you can run it. Everything I've shown you here, you can actually run yourself and do. You can trend data, you can bridge data, you can do tunneling and so on. So there's quite a bit of activities that you can do. And in this case, what we showed was the OPC specifications, UA and OPC Classic, and also the trending. So there's the trending as well that we showed. Now, if you want to learn more about OPC, we highly recommend you come to our hands-on classes, our hands-on training classes, and you can earn your certified OPC professional designation, where you can attend a hands-on workshop. So you can you can learn how to configure DCOM and OPC UA and troubleshoot these systems. You get two computers, you configure them yourself, you troubleshoot them. Once you get communication working, we break it, then you fix it, and we break it again, and you fix it. It's a red-blue kind of a thing, and you actually see what's going on, and you get a lot of experience troubleshooting these systems. Where do you get these classes? Well, these are remote. Most of them are remote, which means that there's no travel, but it is interactive with a live instructor, and these are live remote classes. So they're actually live, they're not recorded. These are public classes. We also have private classes, so we can do these classes remote for your company, or we can even travel to your location. So both are possible, and you can get your own training. And if you're looking at dates, if you're interested in dates, go to opcti.com. Last slide, and then I will get back to the questions that you asked. So we're going to send you a link with, so we're going to send you an email, I mean, with the link to the webinar recording and where you can get OPC Expert from. So opcexpert.com. If you want to do it right now, you can. Oh, and I'll talk about the version right after this. We'll also send you a link where you can get some trending examples and you can see how this stuff is actually done. And you'll get an invitation to the next webinar. It will be at the end of July, and it's a webinar just like this. If you have any questions, you can email us, opcti.com, info@opcti.com, or give us a shout. So folks, this ends a formal part of the presentation.